Hello. I'm here tonight to just kind of share my opinions of what's going on in the world of professional wrestling these days. I have a little bit of research under my belt. So some of the information I might say is based on results I know. However, I don't know a lot behind the scenes. I haven't been keeping track lately. So I just want to share my honest opinion. Today is Tuesday, so 16th. And so, first thing first comes Monday Night Raw last Monday. It was a real entertaining show to witness. It would have been great if I was there. Unfortunately, living in Lincoln, Nebraska, that wasn't the case. But I must say it was a pretty good Raw last night overall. When they have the big gimmicked nights, like the old school night that they did last night, it kind of tends to disappoint a little bit. You expect so much, and you get some of that, but then you don't get a lot. And, honestly, last night, it was a little bit of that. But at the same time, I enjoyed watching it. 3 hours, it was interesting. You can't get away from some of those old school nights with the dancing moments, like when we saw the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Dusty Rhodes, and everybody else adding on to that, and having that big dancing scene with Ron Simmons coming on and saying, "Damn!" The Ron Simmons part's always entertaining. The common fan will get a little bit of a kick out of it. Maybe not a huge chuckle, but something. And, it's come to be expected, but just even seeing people like Mean Gene Okerlund last night, it was something. Jimmy Superfly Snuka, is odd because, you want to be rooting for Santino Marella and Vladimir Kozlov, yet he's there for the Usos, which makes sense, he's Tamina's father. But, he didn't really do anything, he was just at ringside trying to look good. The one thing I was really happy to see was JR actually last night, and I was telling somebody earlier, I found it fitting that the one match that he would call would be Jack Swagger versus Daniel Bryan. Neither name is really that big of a name, Daniel Bryan is the United States champion at this time, and he does have the capability of providing some pretty great matches. And just look at his last few pay-per-views alone when he faced The Miz at Night of Champions to win the U.S. title. My personal opinion, that was the best match of the night. And then when he faced The Miz and John Morrison at Hell in a Cell in that three-way submissions count anywhere match, it was okay. It wasn't my favorite match I'd ever seen. But, Daniel Bryan has what it takes to put on a good match. Look at Bragging Rights a couple weeks ago when he faced Dolph Ziggler. Bragging Rights had some pretty good matches, but I would say that Dolph Ziggler-Daniel Bryan match was the match of the night. A great way to kick off the show. So, yeah, Daniel Bryan, a great upstart. You can tell he has a lot of wrestling experience. And he's fun to watch, I'll be honest. He's not my favorite guy out there, but I do enjoy watching any Daniel Bryan match. And he's put him up against Jack Swagger, the All-American American who everyone loves to hate, Last night was an example of that. And, the match itself was okay. Wasn't my favorite match I've ever seen. But it was fitting that that would be the match that JR would call. The way I look at it is this, JR... If it wasn't for JR, Jack Swagger wouldn't have a job in World Wrestling Entertainment. I'm almost pretty positive on it. And so you have that aspect. So it'd be fitting that JR comes back and calls a Jack Swagger match. And then you have Daniel Bryan, who Michael Cole can't stand. It's the character rivalry and everything. And, to put JR and Michael Cole at the same announce table for a match like that, it provides interest. And, every match on the card, granted that was the last match we saw last night, every match on the card, that would have definitely been the most fitting match to do it. I found a chuckle how Michael Cole was saying so much to JR. JR didn't respond to him at all. JR was, reuniting with King, which, as a fan, I loved seeing that, You don't get, it's hard to get a more classic commentary pair than JR and Jerry the King Lawler. You got Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan back in the day. Great pair. You got Gorilla Monsoon again and Jesse Bobby Ventura. Jesse Ventura and Vince McMahon, but JR and Jerry the King Lawler, a lot of people argue JR is the greatest announcer of all time. I can't argue with that too much. He is a great announcer. He has He had Bell's palsy a few times. That doesn't stop him, though, you know. Just don't, if it makes a difference to you, don't look at him when he talks. But, you know, you have those great wrestling moments of the past, and you usually hear JR commentating behind those matches as you're watching. And to put him with Jerry the King Lawler, you do not get a better pair than Jerry the King Lawler and JR. You know, I remember when Paul Heyman was an announcer with JR, wasn't that good. It was okay, but, you know, and it's definitely the classic case of, you know, you have bad versus a good. You know, especially towards the end, Paul Heyman was there with the Alliance, you know, the ECW, WCW faction when JR was completely sold WWF at the time. So yeah, they didn't ever see eye to eye behind the announce table. They're decent. They definitely weren't the best. You do not get better, especially in today's modern era, than Jerry the King Lawler and good old JR. So, and then, you know, you put Michael Cole in the mix. He's a character on all of his own these days, and I'm still debating if I really care for Michael Cole right now or not. You know, obviously he's putting on this persona where everyone's needing to hate him. I get it, but, you know, if you watch NXT on Tuesdays, that's where you'll find him, where he's the most entertaining. And he just sits there and crashes on the show the whole time. You know, who cares about these divas? The show's putting me to sleep, or I'd rather text message, you know. You know, it's funny, you know. NXT is not the biggest show to watch. I'm usually pretty far, but I don't watch it on Tuesday nights. I have other things going on Tuesday nights, so I watch it later on in the week when it's fully up on Hulu, ready to go, and I have the time to watch it and sit down for 45 minutes and watch an episode of NXT. Once again, not the greatest show, but that's where you'll find some of Michael Cole's best commentary when it wants to be the entertaining side. You find his best commentary in general, you want to watch Raw or you want to watch a pay-per-view. And now I guess he's on SmackDown too. Whatever. I don't get it. Couple things. You know, Ezekiel Jackson is one that comes to mind. I like Ezekiel Jackson. I don't know what it is about him. Maybe it's just because he's a big powerhouse and destroys everybody. I like Ezekiel Jackson. I didn't really care for him when he was in ECW and he was a rival with Christian. You know, I guess I didn't see the light yet, but Ezekiel Jackson's come back from this injury, which I don't like seeing wrestlers gone. I always look forward to seeing him come back, whether I like him or I don't like him. You know, Evan Bourne's out right now. I'm waiting for him to come back. He always puts on a good match. Christian, you know, he's one of the best behind the mic, in my opinion, and he's gone right now. You know, I can't wait till he comes back. The main person I cannot wait to see come back is Triple H. You know, it's obvious he's coming back soon. He was just in a house show in Connecticut where it was their thank you to the fans, their fan appreciation show, and you had both Triple H and Vince McMahon were there. You have that little skit a couple weeks ago where McMahon was in the hospital in a coma and woke up from it. You know, Stephanie McMahon's dream and how he was going to be running for president and everything. And you hear Triple H's voice in the background when Stephanie McMahon woke up. It's obvious a return from one or both of them is about to happen. I'm just anxious to see how it'll be. You know, there's a rumor that Triple H is a mastermind behind the Nexus. Quite frankly, I don't see how Triple H can come back and not have a rivalry with Sheamus right away. You know, technically it was Sheamus who put him out. With that being said, Sheamus and John Morrison is an interesting rivalry. I think come Survivor Series this Sunday, they can put on a really good match. You know, Sheamus is one of those guys where we love to hate him. John Morrison, you know, you don't get much of a better athlete in the WWE than him. It should be a good match this Sunday. You know, Sheamus has the ability to put on a great match, whether you like him or you don't. He can put on a great match, and you know John Morrison can do the same. I'm anxious to see that match this Sunday. Anyway, back to Ezekiel Jackson. You know, he came back and he was on the bragging rights team for Raw, and he was a force to be reckoned with, you know, and that was great and everything. And now, what's next for him? You know, he's a big guy. What are they going to do with him? You know, he was somewhat in a storyline with the bragging rights match. You know, that's over with. You know, what's next? He came back the following Monday and beat Zack Ryder in like 12 seconds. You know, it was a short match. He destroyed him. You know, and how would you expect differently? Next week you saw him on WWE Superstars and he beat Primo, and somehow they made it into a longer match. I get it. You know, they want to put on a longer match. I can't have all these quick matches on TV, but, you know, at the same time, it's Primo. Everyone knows Ezekiel Jackson's going to win, but how can you see